pushing this through and making sure that we're, I need to hear from all of you and get a sense of where the committee is. As I wrote to you earlier, it may be that we end up having a majority-minority report. Obviously, I'd love it if we could come to full consensus on the recommendations, but we'll kind of see where we are at the end of the meeting tonight. And then after tonight, I will create another draft, which will be, we've got to stop editing it or something. So then, as I said today, we'll pencil down after tonight, and we're going to march forward with the document. And then we'll be in, it's looking like June 27th works for most people. Mary, you're going to have to be late. So if we adjusted our schedule a little bit on the Monday the 27th, what would be a time that could work for you?
Oh man, if you could do it at 6, that would just be great.
Folks, could we go 6 to 8 instead of 5 to 7 on June 27th? All right, good. All right. So I think we're, as I was saying, once we get into July, it gets really crazy because people are off on vacations and this and that. So I'm really hoping we can wrap this up at the end of June, which would mean that then it works, Larry, it works for the committee's recommendations to go to the city council. Yeah.
We'll wait for the room to be available to participate. I know it's, I think it's available on the 27th, but I'll double check.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for your flexibility about that. So I wanted to take a few minutes before we dive into our editing together to talk about this newspaper article. I know folks were upset. There were lots of concerns about how this happened. Personally, I thought, wow, we had such a great meeting, and I, came out of our main meeting on such a high, just from the way we'd all been able to work together and really collaborate. So, you want to I don't have any specific questions or direction for this. It did seem important to a number of you that you kind of share thoughts and do a little debrief about the article.
Well, I thought the title of the article was very incorrect, and if you look through the whole entire article, there's not one mention of anybody saying it not being serious, and I think it was like maybe, I don't know who chose the title of it, but it should have, like it said that, made it seem that all committee members were a part of this, and apparently they were not. So that's what I was.
Yeah, it didn't paint a very positive picture, and it was very confusing as to who was saying what and who was involved.
I will say though that it was real attention grabbing. I think that the title certainly was very misleading, and if people took the time to read it, I think they would have realized that the title isn't accurate.
I would agree with that.
It's newspapers.
Yes, it's newspapers, and how do you get people to read the newspapers is something enticing.
Well, it's a form of communication, which we're working on communication, so it's kind of time to have something that, for me, when I looked at it, I went, whoa, well, certainly there's going to be different opinions, that's fine. It just felt like it was supposed to be representing, I'll just talk personally for me, and it didn't represent me. And it also kind of like, a good committee is one that's got conflict and discussing, and you work through it, but for me, it was kind of like, I kind of felt like, shoot, all that time spent in getting to this far, and I feel like a lot of people worked harder than I did on it, so it was just like really disappointing. And then almost instead of what we're attempting to do is make this progress forward for communication and do all the things we need to do, because there's obviously a challenge here. There's like taking all that away. So I was pretty upset with the article.
Yeah, no, I was just disappointed because, I mean, it made it seem like we failed in one of our most important goals, which was to be transparent. I felt like, we already had 4 meetings. I felt like opinions like these or feelings like these would have come out in either one of our meetings, and it didn't. So it made me feel like we had to be transparent with one another.
thought it was bad journalism. I didn't mind the individual who spoke their truth, and I didn't even mind them not being referenced. I did mind that it was he was almost probably a singular voice, did not represent the community. So I felt disrespected. I thought the city was disrespected, and I thought the title of the whole article as a whole was prejudicial, and a lot of people would grab that and read that, and would never look in there to see if and make the judgment on whether or not it was a prejudicial argument, or whether the article in fact supported the title.
Well, deeds been done, which is too bad, and I'm sorry that that happened. I would encourage us to, we still have work ahead, and we want to finish these recommendations, get this document done, get it submitted. I'm hoping tonight as we go through, just as you did at the last meeting, where you really collaborated with each other, we keep that same spirit, figure out which edits we keep, which we don't, and where we can find some middle ground again to try to come up with recommendations that everyone can really support. Tom?
I had a question on missing members. We did hear from Carol
I'm not sure where Colleen is, because she hadn't told me she wouldn't be here. Carol, obviously, in a very serious situation with his son, and Braden is graduating.
okay.
So, we knew he wasn't going to be here, but I'm hoping he could join us at work. So it's really too bad about Carol's son. That makes me feel very bad for him. So any other thoughts, final thoughts before we dive in? I mean, one goal to strive for would be to have a very positive article about the committee process here and get ready to submit recommendations.
But how interesting would that be?
Yeah. So, but to Adrian's point, I do think if anyone, is harboring some things that you're not comfortable with or you fundamentally disagree with, let's make sure that comes out in this process and not in the press. Because I also was thinking that what was written was not the kind of thing that had been communicated to me personally. So, or about the tenor of our meetings. So it's a little hard when you don't know that there's background stuff that isn't being shared as part of the process. Okay, so let's dive in here. I'm thinking many of you probably brought your own copies, and for those watching, there are copies of the latest draft over here if you want to follow along. You'll recall that on June 6th, I sent you a draft, and I had taken, so on May 9th, we came to some conclusions. I then took that, interpreted that into another draft of your document, and got that out. I don't know, it was like 20 or something. Folks responded, so I made some additional changes and sent it back to you on June 6th with those changes and my comments, so you knew where the edits were coming from based on the feedback that I received. And then sent that out on the 6th. Pauline responded with quite a few edits. Gary, you said you have a couple of minor things and you want to reference those tonight. Megan liked it, thought it was good. And Carol and Tom said, let's wait and finish edits on the 13th, so that's where we are. So tonight, I have my edits still in the red and the comments still in there originally as they were on June 6th. And then Colleen's edits are in gold, which is hard to read it in black and white, but when you get it, I'll point this out to you. Okay, so Mary had a number of comments for the first paragraph, just edits. Any concerns about these, or do you agree with them?
Is this in the introduction and overview?
Introduction and overview.
I disagree with I think the purpose of the committee was to make recommendations to the city government on civic engagement and communications, not to go through citizens' concern and discuss the city government.
I did look at that as well, and wonder if in fact we were to address citizen concerns, or were we really going to be providing the city with recommendations for better communication.
But the initiative, as I understand it, for this committee was the brouhaha that got set up. So the committee was formed as a reaction or response to citizen concerns.
Yeah, but is that could have been a response? Somebody help me here.
This committee
Yeah,
wouldn't have
that's
been
what
formed
initiated.
without,
Yeah,
this
right.
committee wouldn't have been
Without our
formed.
purpose,
Yeah.
is to address that.
It's almost like the purpose is what's on there, but this is in response to citizen concerns and stuff.
So how would you shape that, Paula?
I'm just thinking maybe, for the sake of conversation, is just to switch on it, because I do believe our purpose was that making these recommendations to city council on this communication and engagement. But the reason we are here is because there's been quite a few concerns by the citizens and a distrust of the government.
So how does
It's a little, it's almost like one ahead of the other. Start by saying, by providing recommendations, but maybe we need to just acknowledge what you put in there to respond, rather than to address, but in response to citizens' concerns and distrust. Is that?
So you're saying like, the committee was made in response to a citizen concern. Our purpose is to make recommendations for blah, 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 without the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Is that your way to word it?
So the purpose of the committee was in response to citizen concerns, so we take out was to address?
No, it's maybe make two sentences. In response to citizen concerns, a committee was formed. The purpose of the committee was to, would that work?
That would work for me.
Yeah, that.
In response to that's better English too.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, I'll make that change. And then, the other, city-minded way to make the maximum effort to ensure our